years ago, and I know because I lived, I'll just give you a brief background. I went into the mental ward because I was working on a script. That's what took me there. And I went for 3 days and I thought, thoda homework karke aa jaungi, but it made me stay there for 23 days. Because I just got, I just got involved with what was happening to the women there. I came across so many women. It was such a taboo. Treatment ho jata hai. They are, they are given a green chit. They are ready to go home. Treatment ho gaya, but family se koi aa hi nahi raha lene ke liye, because they don't want to. There's such a it has always been such a stigma to this कि फैमिली में कोई मेंटली इल है तो पता न चले, घर में शादी नहीं होगी, कौन, there's all kinds of things, implications are there. It's very complex, and it was very sad to see this. I've been trying to create some awareness about it by writing. That's the only way. I'm not an activist. I can only write it, and I've written it through my poetry, a lot about the women that I encountered there. But this is only now I feel it's beginning to open up a bit. People are feeling okay, little bit beginning to feel okay talking about it and saying, well, I've been feeling low, I went through depression, I'm going through, this kind of disturbance, and I need help. It was such a difficult thing to even acknowledge that I need help, because I don't mind, my head is not straight. I'm having trouble in my head, and so that has been my experience.
आपको लगता है कि महिला को सामने से आकर इस पर खुलकर बात करनी चाहिए?
बिल्कुल, और अब हो रही है, पहले भी हुई है, but it wasn't out in the open. It wasn't. I mean, there have been organizations who've been working towards this for a long time. It's not just कि अभी ये नई बात नहीं है, लेकिन अभी थोड़ा सा उसकी एक्सेप्टेंस होने लगी है. People जिनकी फैमिली में कोई हिस्ट्री नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, they are also identifying their dark periods as periods of being mentally traumatized or disturbed, or तो उसमें फिर कई जेनेटिक चीजें आ जाती हैं. बहुत है, it's not just कि a situation disturbs you so you are going through depression. It's not just that. It's a medical thing also, which she'll be able to explain much better. लेकिन अब much better. I mean, I feel this is a good time to address these issues. And now we are open to it, and that's why a film like this could happen now and not earlier. Thanks to Pushan, I'm glad that he had this little history with his grandma. I had this little thing with my mother's reference, and somehow things got put together. I mean, it just has to happen at a time. Yeah. To be really honest, I think my writing and my painting has helped me stay afloat through those dark phases. I just tried to, I knew at that time that this was back when I was going through periods of, depression. This was back in the 90s, when it's second half of the 90s. And at that time, I just didn't think कि मुझे psychiatric help लेना चाहिए या कुछ. I've been a student of abnormal psychology, which I studied in New York. One of my major subjects was that. So I was observing myself constantly, and I knew how I can deal with it is by expressing myself through any of my creative outlets, and that will help me. So I think वो एक तो आर्टिस्ट के साथ वैसे भी होता है, थोड़ा डार्क पीरियड आता है तो क्रिएटिविटी थोड़ी surface कर जाती है ज़्यादा, because you use it. It happens both ways. You can consciously use it, or you unconsciously you become more productive in your creativity. So I think I was able to observe myself. I could see that I'm going down. I'm hitting rock bottom. Oh my God, what's going to happen now? And I knew that I had to pull myself up. So consciously and being constantly observing myself. I've been able to do that without medication, without clamoring for help, because I thought I'm in a position I could help other people, so why can't I help myself? So I think the awareness, the being conscious of where you're going, and you all, sometimes people don't realize, we don't realize कि हम इतने डिप्रेशन में जा रहे हैं, हम पड़े हुए हैं एक जगह, हम कुछ काम नहीं कर पा रहे, कुछ हो नहीं रहा, everything seems like it's the end of the road. So I think being aware and working on yourself, psyching yourself into feeling better and coming out of it.
I was dealing with my father's dementia before he passed away. I had to remind myself every day to be more patient, because in the beginning I used to lose my cool with him. And when you're talking to somebody like that 6-7 times a day across 2 cities and just on the phone, it became very difficult. I had to tell myself I have to be more patient and more compassionate, because I wouldn't know when he would be switching gears. In dementia, sometimes a person will give you proper accounting ka hisab, and the next 5 minutes would be something else. So you can't judge, So you have to remind yourself that I have to understand this and be patient and tolerant.
So the brain is, even psychologists are always doing more and more research on the brain to find out more and more. So I think it's always in process, the study of the brain. But I think that is also where the stigma comes from about mental health, because you know so little. So, you hear, so I think it's like a cycle, and I think to answer one of your questions, what we can do about it is raise awareness, right? When you talk about mental health, and kudos to this film to have done that, to collaborate with Empower and talk about mental health. When you talk about it more is how you can then normalize it, then you can get to know more, you learn more. Like ma'am was saying, she was aware of what was happening to her, like Raju said. And caregiver burnout is also something very real. It's also something that, we deal with in mental health. Because it's not tough, it is tough being a caregiver as well. So I think the first thing is to start bringing out awareness. Like for example, it's not incurable. Mental health issues do have a cure. Some might need lifelong medication. Some might need just a month with your therapist. So again, it's like physical health, right? Sometimes you just need like 5 tablets, and sometimes you need like a lifelong of BB medicine or something like that. So it is like that. So I think just talking about it and being more aware will then help people learn about it more and be able to express themselves, and most importantly get help when it is necessary. Yes, very right. बच्चों को भी mental health issues हो सकते हैं. First of all, as parents, उसे टालना बंद करना चाहिए. Okay, not कि नहीं ये तो होता है, ठीक हो जाएगा, तुझे थोड़ी ना problem है. Those are very common things that we keep hearing. I remember I was consulting with the hospital once, and एक बच्चे का he was a little older, but he wanted to take appointments with me only when his father was not in town, because his father would shout at him for seeing a therapist. So that is तो yes, बच्चों को भी and जैसे आप बोल रहे हो बच्चे expressive नहीं होते, but in a way expressive होते हैं. A child can also feel sad and not want to go out with their friends, which means the child is also probably going through depression. So parents just need to be aware and accepting कि कुछ मेरे बच्चे के साथ भी हो सकता है, maybe I need to take the child to a therapist. There's nothing wrong in that. So I think again, acceptance is the first thing, and then just looking out for those signs. When a child is behaving not badly, sorry, but when a child is say acting out, बहुत गुस्सा हो रहा है, for example, बच्चे tantrum throw करते हैं, but at some point of time there is a line between acting out and throwing a tantrum. So I think just awareness, and I always say when in doubt, just go take help. Let the therapist tell you कि नहीं ये normal है, but it's okay.
That's well done there. The thing about the music in the film is it's diegetic. That term means it's not background music. It's always either played on the television or it's played on the cassette player or someone singing it live, right? At no point do we have background music to tell the audience how to feel. Somehow that's not my job. Directors try to do this constantly. They give you violins and drums and tell you how to feel. My job is to present a situation. It is not, it would be rude of me to attempt to influence your mood based on that. I'm trying to push the form towards that idea. I think just because we have music in the world, we've decided that this is how we're going to use it in film. You know, "Tum meri bachchi ki maan banne wali," that's really what it is. And then I know exactly what my response should be. And really, when you make a film about the human condition, which these guys have crafted so finely, right? I think that I would rather leave judgment, feeling, an intellectual response, an emotional response to people like you who have taken the trouble to watch the film. So although sometimes in a very difficult situation, a very lively song is playing on the tape deck, so it offers a counterpoint to the emotional content of the scene, which has a third layer for you. So that's quite interesting. So we're not watching Mickey Mouse anymore. We're all grown up. You know, it doesn't have to go ting 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 ting. It doesn't have to do that, right? You could be listening to something very cheerful, and your dog could be dying. You know, for what it's worth, right? It could happen.
Yeah.
You know, you're driving around, you have a terrible crash, and Kishore Kumar is very happy on the stereo system, and that actually creates an interesting drama between the visual, the emotional, and the music. There's a tension, and that tension is where we live as filmmakers, and we like it. You're a filmmaker, you know what you mean. There you go. Is that useful?
Yes.
Okay, great. The gender is not useful to me. The relationship is.
Yeah, so what inspired you to portray that relationship?
What inspired me to do it? I think a lot, one of the reasons was that there's a cliche about what mothers are like. And I think there's a cliche about what relationships are like. You know, and I think we have many directors and filmmakers in a long and varied history to thank for that particular cliche, which turns into memes, which turns into expectation. And those films do wonderfully well, and they're wonderful films in their own right, but they never examine the human condition at all. In fact, one of our first meetings, Deepti ji herself, who was very erudite, very interesting, said, how can this woman be an artist, a mum from India, and be as cruel as she is to her daughter? Remember that? We talked about it. I said, and for me it was like, which garden did you grow up in? You know what I mean? And it was like, and that's when I felt that we could have a real friendship, because I felt I could bring stuff from other people's experiences that I've heard of. My mom's great, but like, there are other people who have really difficult relationships. Clearly you do. So that kind of helps, because people are complicated and complex. And I think that just because you are a mother, that doesn't necessarily mean that you suddenly are some sort of Ganga Jal mein dhula hua tulsi ka patta. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen. And just because you're a daughter, there are a series of expectations, but that doesn't mean you normally behave that way. You behave according to your individual impetus for that moment. And very important things happen in an instant. And those are either based on fear, cruelty, or love. Those are basically fear and love. And this film is about trying to take the position that love is a considered response and not an instinctive one. And so I just thought also women are much more fun to work with than I mean, they're just open and interesting and interested. You know, the men are idiotic, as we have seen.